Hey everybody, I am here today with Cindy Garrison out of our Pella office and Jordyn Edwards out of our Cedar Rapids office. And I'm really excited to talk to them today because we are going to tackle a topic that I think a lot of new agents wrestle with, and that is when and if to go all in on real estate. And so I have chosen these ladies because I think they have an interesting kind of backstory and what led them to real estate. And I wanted them to share their stories and their takeaways as far as what it's been like these first couple years in the business. And so, to get things started, Jordyn, why don't we just have you tell us a little bit about what you did prior to real estate and kind of your journey in real estate? Like, are you on a team? What's that look like? And how long have you been licensed?
Well, before I got into real estate, I worked for the state of Iowa. I worked in a courthouse in the clerk's office. I did a lot of filing process. I was pretty much the middleman between the public and attorneys and the judges. Um,
Gotcha.
and one of my good friends is actually, well, she's my team lead and my broker, Tyra. She
Okay.
hunted me down for quite some time to get into real
She's pretty good
estate.
at that.
Yeah, she is. And then her husband was harassing my husband because 'cause they're friends and was like, "Jordyn would be so good at real estate. She really needs to join." And so I had our second child, and I was on maternity leave, and just sitting there, I was like, "I really don't wanna go back to my 9 to 5. Like, I may have
Hmm.
to go back to my 9 to 5 for a little bit, but I really don't want to. I wanna be home." And so I texted Tyra and I said, "Hey, let's sit down and grab lunch," and we grabbed lunch, and the next day I was signing myself up for classes. So, sitting on my maternity leave doing my real estate classes.
Yeah. Well, that's an opportune time to do it. I mean, you have the time, and so
Yeah.
awesome. Okay. And so, how long did that process take you then? To once you started your classes, like how long was it before you were up and running as a licensed agent?
I think so I started my classes in the middle of August, and then I went back to work my full time in September. So my classes were really done in my own time after my kids went to bed. And I passed my real estate exam, I want to say February of 2023. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Gotcha. And so then you went back to that full time job, and how long were you there? And what was your game plan, I guess, as far as juggling full time work and getting your license?
Well, I my game plan really was to turn real estate into a full-time gig. That was my focus. I wanted the flexibility for my kids. My husband's job, he doesn't have the most flexibility, so one of us really needed it. Um,
Hmm.
and so I went back to work, and I was only at work for a month, and then I
Okay.
left
Yeah.
it. I was only at my full-time job for a month, and then I just took a head dive straight into real estate because I learned that you need to pour every ounce of energy getting your business up and running. And I didn't have the
Yeah.
energy when I was working full time and being a mom, and
Yeah.
I think that's really why it took off is because I took that leap into real estate full time. Didn't even question it, just did it.
Awesome. Well, we're going to circle back to that for sure because I think that's something I can relate to as well, and I think probably others who are listening. So definitely put a pin in that. Want to come back to that, but want to hear from you, Cindy, as to what your journey looked like. What'd you do before real estate, and where are you at now?
So I was our ASC here in Pella prior to getting licensed, and
Yeah.
the leadership team with C21 was very gracious in allowing me to finish to work full time while I was getting licensed in my own free time. And then in February of last year, or sorry, of 2023, dove all the way in, and I just I knew that if I didn't give it my all, I wasn't going to be successful.
Sure. So you worked as our ASC then, and would you say that it was your proximity to this industry that got you interested in the agent side of things, or how did that happen for you?
Absolutely. Well, the Pella office, it's like a big family. So, and we had Bob as our broker at that time. And Bob and Doug have always been big mentors in my personal life and transitioning into being a realtor. So I knew if I was going to do it, I needed to do it while they were still around. Otherwise, it would be something I would definitely look back at and regret.
Okay, yeah. And so that was, and I remember that because I was on staff at that time too, and kind of seeing that transition play out. And I think, I mean, you're right. C21 was very supportive of helping you get to that next place in your career, even if it didn't mean being backstage anymore. And I suspect that your backstage knowledge probably has really helped you as an agent. Would you say that that's true?
Absolutely, yes. Just having a good understanding of the tools and systems and processes, it definitely gave me that leap that I needed to jump into it. And then also just the confidence of knowing that if I didn't have the answer to a question, I had the team behind me that I'd be able to find it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, I love how you pointed out that you had some specific mentors in your life helping with that transition and the foresight to know, like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I need to do it while they're still here before they retire, is what you were, I think,
Mhm.
getting at. And
Yes.
so, yeah, that makes total sense. So, both of you kind of, you entered knowing you were going to go all in from the get go. And I think some of that has to do with having been here as a staff person. And for you, Jordyn, it was like that was the game plan, but maybe it sounds like it maybe expedited or happened a little more quickly than you thought in terms of that transition. Do you want to elaborate on that anymore?
Yeah, so I previously was already kind of looking at different job opportunities. And I'm a firm believer that if an opportunity is laid in front of you, you just got to take it. And I really think that real estate started that for me because, as you know, I opened up a boutique also this year. So
Hmm.
I think just diving head in and just giving something your all is, like Cindy said, you're going to succeed by doing that. But you really have to put forth that effort. And I think that it did expedite just the opportunity for me. And I got a
Hmm.
taste of, I guess, the freedom and the flexibility that real estate has to offer and what it offered my family. And so that's why I didn't even second guess taking it.
Yeah. And the both of you are coming up on what will be almost 2 years as licensed agents. And so, curious to know, like, looking back at over the last couple of years, and both going all in relatively quickly or from the right from the start. Um, Curious to know your thoughts or insights, like, hindsight 2020, looking back, like, do you think you'd be where you are in your business had you not made that choice early on to give it your all? What do you think, Cindy? Because it sounds
Absolutely
like
not.
you were resolute in deciding to go all in from the get-go. What do you think?
Well, just even having the background knowledge for my previous role, if I didn't go all in, there's no way that I would have been able to keep up and to serve my clients in the capacity that I've been able to, just because things are constantly changing and just needing to stay up to date with new trends and that kind of thing. You really do have to go all in if you're going to serve your clients to the best of your ability.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because, well, and especially this past year, we've had huge changes in our industry. So keeping up on just even legal changes and how to practice real estate, maybe from what you initially learned, has changed a little bit. Not so much here, I would say, just because we've always done buyer's agency. We've always trained to sit down, have that consultation. But I think just you touched on it a little bit, the availability for your clients. And, we are very much all about giving our clients a remarkable experience from beginning to end. And if you're tied to a desk somewhere, that would probably be pretty challenging. Um,
Mhm.
yeah. What about you, Jordyn?
I would definitely say go I'm right on board with Cindy and what she said because in order to serve your clients, you really need to have the time and the focus to give them. And I mean, you really don't know how much one day your phone could be not very busy. And then the next day you're on your phone constantly communicating with people, which is a huge aspect of real estate in general. So I think being able to have the time was really important when it came to serving clients. And I really think that's what helps your business take off.
Yeah. And I think I'm curious to know what you guys like. What does your days look like? Because I think sometimes people come into real estate and they think, oh, well, I can do that on the side. I can do it in the evenings or the weekends. But no 2 days are alike. And you're both talking about the value of having that time. So have you guys kind of struck a balance for what your schedule looks like, or how do you spend your time to advance your business? Would love to hear your take on that.
So I know I've got my morning blocked from 8 to 9. I primarily just focus on lead generation, whether that's follow up. Follow up is definitely key in real estate, whether it's just incubating leads that you already have or just giving timely updates to clients you're working with. So I feel like the first thing in the morning, that's normally what I dedicate my time to. And then really the day kind of just might take off from there, just following up with additional questions that clients might have.
Yeah. What about you, Jordyn?
I will say that I am trying to find a better balance.
Mm-hmm.
Some of my days are crazy and some of them are pretty slow. So the mornings, I spend a lot of time focusing and planning out social media because social media is a huge spoke for me in my business. But I will say, like going off of what Cindy said, what you do in the morning sometimes plays a factor into what the rest of your day is going to look like. So you could
Mm-hmm.
follow up with somebody in the morning. For example, last week it was following up with a buyer in the morning on Thursday. And it's, well, I want to put an offer on this house. And so, going through all of that, and it's then the domino effect after that. And so your day is ever changing, I feel like, in real estate. So having the flexibility and just knowing that your schedule may change and being okay with that. But also knowing if your schedule does change, where do you plug the things that did change in your schedule on a different day, or, better time management. So I think
Mm-hmm.
I'm also figuring that out going into year 3, I guess. Next
Mm-hmm.
year, it's a top priority for me is to really get that established.
Sure. Yeah, and I like that both of you mentioned the prioritization of that lead gen and lead incubation, because I think that's key in this business always. Whether you're a brand new agent or you've been doing it for 10 plus years, that prioritization of following up with your people, staying top of mind, having conversations, that's going to be what continues to build the business. And so, if nothing else, new agents or any agents should be prioritizing spending that time every day generating and incubating leads for sure. Um, Curious to know too, what, if you think back over the last couple of years, I've heard um, overwhelmingly it seems like you are glad that you went in all in from the get-go, or early on, and just how that has multiplied for your business. But what trade-offs or sacrifices have you had to make? Because we all know it's not complete sunshine and rainbows all the time. So uh, tell us a little bit about some of those sacrifices or trade-offs.
I know for me, that first year is at home budget was a lot tighter, just kind of being able to budget, just always trying to keep a little bit of savings just for what might come in the next few months or may not come in the next few months. So that
Sure.
was one of the biggest sacrifices, but it was, um, but just the flexibility and time too, just having that extra dynamic. It's been a good give and take there.
Yeah. So budgeting, and maybe even like having to start a budget if you didn't do that before, because the income is so inconsistent right out of the gate, for sure. How about you, Jordyn?
I'm gonna, yeah, go off of that. I would say budget just because it's different than when you're getting a paycheck every 2 weeks and you're not getting a paycheck unless you're selling something or, you
Mhm.
know, and so I think that was, a bigger sacrifice. But also another is some nights are late. I mean, there are weekends, especially right in the beginning when you're trying to build your business. There's going to be a lot of sacrifice because you are going to be working with somebody else's schedule. They're not going to be worried about your schedule, especially right out the bat. So when you have referrals and you have people that return and understand you as a person better, I think it's a little bit different. You're able to say, well, this doesn't work for me, or, But when you're right in the beginning of building your business, you are at, somebody else's schedule. So I would say
Yeah,
that is a sacrifice.
sure. I think that's a really good point. And I think it's a necessary one because early on in your careers, you got to take every opportunity.
Mhm.
And you both are individuals who have taken advantage of the opportunities that have come your way. And it pays dividends down the road because they will be a repeat client. They will refer to you and you'll have more control over your schedule at that time. But I think that's a really good point because I mean, I remember myself doing so much of that and just picking up and going or having my daughter ride with me because maybe she had a function she had to get to and so coordinating the times for it to make sense. There was a time where a friend's parent met us at a house to be able to pick her up, and so you get creative with it, you figure it out, you make it work. But it really goes back to you got to take every opportunity, and you got to make it happen. And so yeah, sometimes that comes at the expense of your time or interrupting maybe regular schedules and things like that. But I think the trade-off on the flip side of that is you do have the flexibility to be at your kids' functions for for, or prioritizing them, or the flexibility with work that you didn't have in the 9 to 5 and all of that. So, but yeah, very good point. I know for me, the budgeting was huge too because I was a single parent with the only income coming in. And so I had to figure out exactly what I needed to maintain our household every month and know what money I had in the bank. And okay, and I literally had the mindset of we're good for the next 2.5 months. And it put some pressure on me to think, okay, well, I've got these two buyers I'm working with, really need to get them under contract. And I'm a little bit, being vulnerable to admit that because I don't want this to come across as like a very transactional way of thinking. But I also have to figure out my livelihood. And always, though, like sticking to the core values, taking the high road, putting people above transactions, things always seem to come together and to work out. And you know what? When they didn't, like there were things that I did, like donate plasma, bartended at weddings on a Saturday evening, just to bring in some extra cash. Sacrificed all kinds of um, lifestyle kinds of things in our budget to make it work. And so um, I can relate to all of that for sure. Um, so, what advice do you have then for new agents, like the agents that are coming in and trying to find their footing, who maybe are on the fence as far as they're transitioning away from some other type of 9 to 5 job, or they are planning to supplement with part time work, because the reality of having to pay bills is true for everybody, and the fact that it might be 6 months before they get to the closing table on something. Curious to know, like, what advice would you have for agents that are kind of in that transition period when it comes to going all in on real estate? Jordyn, how about you first?
I will say something that has stuck with me, and it maybe was discussed in Connect or one of our first meetings that we had, is that whatever you're doing right now pays off down the road in 90 days. And so that's something I've tried to focus on in real estate because you do go sometimes months without a closing, but that's when the budget comes into play. But it's you are working your sphere of people, and what you're doing now will pay off, and it usually always does. So you could have a lot of listings and nothing's pending, but if they all go pending at the same time, then you're going to have a bunch of closings all at once. And
Hmm.
so I think that's the biggest thing. And I think I've heard that it's about a 3 year sort of learning curve, or by year three, you have a lot of people that are repeats and stuff like that. So I will say if getting through the first 2 years is probably in the biggest part of real estate, and just encouraging yourself just to keep going, to keep plugging into your business, to keep building your business, to keep those posts going, to keep those following up with your people going and things like that. Just focusing on your business because it will pay off.
Yeah, I love that you pointed out kind of the what you do today matters for the future, because I think it's really easy in this type of entrepreneurial world to let the days tick by and realize a week's gone by and you actually haven't done anything to work on or in your business. And so back to like what Cindy said right at out of the gate is every day prioritizing lead generation and lead incubation. Something as small as 1 to 2 hours a day of initiating contact with people, writing personal notes, scheduling coffees, that's going to pay off for the long run. And I think even now, as we're discussing and it's holiday season and all of that, this is a time when those things fall by the wayside. But they should be top priority because you're in front of so many more people right now. And so, anyway, I love that you said that because what we do today does matter, even if we're not seeing the direct result tomorrow. And so, love that. How about you, Cindy? What advice would you have?
I would say as a new agent, if you don't know what to do right away starting off, just go into the office. You'll learn from other agents, and that's where you pick up on just a lot of the lingo, and just you can kind of mimic what they're doing. If they're working on mailers, it'll give you a little motivation to maybe put together your own mailers, or just swap ideas. It's very motivational just to come into the office.
Yeah, I think being around and engaged makes a huge difference. And I know for me, it was I had the opportunity to shadow an agent through kind of a unique situation, and I drove her around and I got to hear the conversations with clients and see everything in action. So I would echo that as far as being around and engaged with other agents, but also raise your hand for shadowing opportunities,
Mhm.
because seeing it happen, I think, helps a lot of people learn as well. Well, I can say, I've been with both of you guys on your journeys since you started as agents, and I'm super proud of all that you've accomplished. And you guys really just stand out to me as a couple of agents who've gone all in. And so I am hopeful and encouraged by your actions and knowing that they will inspire others to do the same. So good work, ladies. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Teske.
Thanks.